Larry Goldberg, it has been a if since we last talked on
Yeah,
Friday, I mean things
yeah,
just keep on happening and happening and
yeah.
happening. The most recent release coming out just minutes ago is that Tesla has just asked for permits over the weekend, I guess, or Friday,
Yep.
to build out 5.2 million square feet.
No, 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 you're wrong. Not to build out, to occupy.
To,
The permits that they've pulled are not permits to build.
okay.
They're permits to occupy, which implies that it's built out already. The kind of permit that they have requested is not from a building department in Texas. It's from the department that permits the occupation of a built-out space.
Okay. So
And
Sawyer
the
Mirror. Okay.
implication is that the building is already ready
Okay.
and they're going to initiate production.
Okay, all right. Because Sawyer Merritt seemed to be suggesting that
Oh,
that
he's wrong.
he's completely wrong.
He's
Okay,
wrong. And you know why I can say that?
okay,
I mean, if that's what he said, I haven't read Sawyer's piece, but I can state it unequivocally because the guy who really knows is Joe Tegmeyer,
yes.
and Joe just tweeted that this
Oh,
is the this is the department that approves occupation. And actually, okay, I know what. Sawyer got that from the same publication that Joe got it from.
oh, I see.
Joe's tweet, and shout out to Joe.
Mhm.
Joe's tweet was to point out that the magazine, the website that published this article has published this incorrect information
Uh,
before because they don't understand the information. And so Joe corrected it. The department that Joe says that the department that this permit is sought from is the department that approves occupation of a built-out space, not the building of a built-out space.
well, that makes a huge difference then.
I mean,
It
go on.
means
Yeah.
it would mean then that Texas might be very ready to start production or of the 2.5.
If you follow Joe carefully, you've seen that he has actually photographed those built-out areas. I don't think they're fully equipped with equipment yet because he shows a lot of equipment still getting ready to be installed. Now, whether that's for the 2.5 or whether it's for the robotaxi, there's so much going on in that building. It's
Right.
impossible. I don't think it's possible to really determine. And there's a lot of conversation about about what is the manufacturing method of the robotaxi,
Mhm.
and we don't know whether that and that's obviously not going to be used in the 25K car or the
Right.
Model 2 or whatever we want to call it. So it's unclear exactly what's happening, but no, they're not starting to build anything. They're requesting occupation.
Okay. All right. Well, in either case, 5.2 million square feet is a lot of building.
But yeah, but isn't I'm trying to remember the total square feet of Texas,
Yeah,
Gigatex.
I forget too. I don't have it handy in my
I'm
head.
trying to think. I'm trying to determine whether my mind may be playing tricks on me. At my age, your memory is not that great. I think it's probably 10 million. I think
This will be
that
half
is
of the building.
quarter of the building.
Oh,
10
five,
million,
five,
2.5.
no,
Oh,
5.2 million.
Oh, I was thinking 2 point. Yeah, that's half the building.
Okay. Well, then Elon Musk has been all over the news over the weekend. And the first area I wanted to tackle, I think Elon has become now beyond just maybe helping himself with the conservative wing of the party or the conservative wing of the United States. I think he's gone past being a darling of the right. Now he's, I think, maybe achieving hero status on the right because people are starting to talk about his impact on the election might be, more than anybody else's impact other than,
Yeah.
Trump himself. Would this impact future sales of Tesla vehicles?
Randy, I'm going to push back a little bit on what you said. I don't see it as the right. I don't consider myself to be on the right.
Okay.
I consider myself to be centrist.
Okay.
I really do. I don't dismiss, as many on the right do, many of the views of the left. In fact,
Huh?
I'd always seen myself to be somewhat liberal, not somewhat liberal. I regarded myself as a liberal.
Mhm, mhm.
I wouldn't say even centrist, but, and I was a great follower of the late John Kennedy,
Who
John
would
F.
be who would be on the right today? I'm
No,
just
no, yeah, but that's the point I think I'm making.
yeah.
So this whole thing of labeling the right and labeling the left, has gone is just it's like, it's legacy talk. It's legacy speak.
Let me restate my headline. My headline
Yeah,
question. There's a conservative or a Republican feeling. There's a feeling out there. I know it. It's my friends. It's in
yeah,
my family that Teslas were part of the greenie movement.
yeah,
The federal government and state governments all over the country trying to force people
yeah,
to into a Tesla or into some kind of a electric vehicle, and therefore there were some on that side of the divide who wouldn't even think about a Tesla
right,
because it had that kind of an image in their brain.
right.
So my question is, would Elon Musk, if he's becomes the hero of this election cycle, would that, even if he's just the darling, and I'm wrong, even he's introduced himself to millions and millions and millions of people wearing a Tesla t-shirt, et cetera. Do you think this moves the needle in terms of sales in the future?
No, I don't think it. I think it's going to have some negative impact to people who still see themselves on the left, the so-called progressives, who were generally seen to be driving a Tesla, wanted to be seen driving a Tesla as a statement. I think that kind of population goes away. I'm not sure how big it was. Um, I think the time has come where Teslas have to appeal to people because they're very good cars.
Mhm, mhm.
And there's a transition taking place in that regard. Um, so there are a lot of people who are, proclaiming victoriously, oh, this is the end of Tesla because the liberals aren't going to buy it anymore. And maybe there is a big impact on that portion of the. Are they a huge portion of the buying public? Well, maybe they were a big portion of those people buying Teslas. The people who all bought Priuses as a badge of honor,
Right.
maybe moved to Tesla with some relief that they're getting a decent car. Um, and so maybe that all goes away. But the question you have to ask is, are they being replaced? And apparently they are, because just look at sales. Sales are, pretty good right now.
Mhm, mhm.
You only have to look at the sales of the Model Y. I mean, it's the best-selling car in the world. So, you know, I guess I'm making all kinds of excuses. I think we're fine. I think that the politics of this are not as important as the quality of the car and the price of the car. I will say a lot of friends that I have turned pretty ugly, pretty nasty, calling this whole event at the Madison Square Gardens a Nazi event,
Yeah.
which is, very insulting to me because,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
come from a family that was impacted very heavily by the Holocaust.
Yes.
I know what a Nazi is. Trump is not a Nazi. I mean, Elon is definitely not a Nazi.
Did
Um,
did you know, Larry, that the New York Times ran a headline before the Truman Dewey election calling Dewey a Nazi? So this has a very long tradition. This is not the first time that this has happened. It's just like the lowest thing you can say about a person, and it makes no sense at all to be calling
None
you.
at all. None at all. And it's very demeaning. Interestingly enough, Trump was accused of being supported by Russia because of the Steele dossier, which
Right.
ironically was prepared by Hillary Clinton. I mean, you can't make that up. I mean, nobody could have made a story like that up. But the interesting part of this all is that Russia definitely had an impact on one election. Back before the war, the Soviet Union financed the socialist candidate for president.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, I mean, it's a long tradition of Russian involvement. Anyway, there we
All
go.
right. So next one is that Philadelphia is suing Mr. Musk to stop him from doing the sweepstakes in Pennsylvania.
Good luck with that.
Well, it's pretty funny, Larry. I don't know if you paid attention. I put this out the other day because I've run a few sweepstakes in my life.
Yeah,
And there are state regulations with regard to how you run sweepstakes.
right. Every state is different. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Attorney General who's filed this, he doesn't talk anything about whether it's election interference or anything. He says, "Look, we've got rules about how you run a
Sweepstake.
So here's the funny part: the court can't hear it until Friday.
You mean next
So,
Friday?
and it's coming Friday, which is
Uh,
3 days before the election. So it's like, get your injunction on Friday. What good did it do you?
yeah.
I
But they're
just,
doing a hell of a job. I must say, this is the first time that the Republican Party have really stepped up their ground game to something meaningful.
well, look at the group as as Jordan Peterson said the other day. It's like the Warner, or is it Warner Brothers, or whoever it is, the Captain America and all of the other wonder creatures that he's got around him right now. He's got an amazing team. So he's also being called out for his short stint as an illegal immigrant. And he is an absolute hypocrite because for a week or so, or I forget, for a very short period of time, he was an illegal immigrant.
No, he wasn't an illegal immigrant. He was a legal immigrant into the country, but during a period of time, his status was had expired and not renewed. That's a very different thing. That's not an illegal immigrant. So he came into the United States legally. He was at Penn legally, UPenn legally, and it was just after he kind of walked out of his class at where was it?
At,
I get
at Penn, at the Penn Business School. What's it called? The
not Penn Business. No, it wasn't Penn.
University of.
Stanford. No, it was at
Oh,
Stanford.
later. Oh, you're talking. This didn't happen until he was at Stanford.
This was that happened after he
Yeah,
left Stanford
right.
before
Right.
when he started his company.
Yep. You're right. I get it. Yep.
So he entered the country legally, and the real question was when he went to Stanford, he should have stayed as a student in order to
Right.
maintain his status, but
Right.
then he
Right.
fell out of status. That's a very different thing entirely.
Anyway, it's just they're throwing everything at this. I just thought it was pretty funny that they're bringing
But
that up.
that's the point. I mean, once you enter government, every single step, every single dot, every single T that is crossed or not crossed is examined. So once he enters government, look, he could sit on a commission. The commission would have no power.
Let's back up and put an indent on this, Larry. So Elon Musk is said he would like to run the Doge Commission, or the
Right.
Doge Department, the Department of Government Efficiency. And you've been in an argument all day on X with regard to whether or not he could do that and maintain his CEO positions, his stock holdings without putting them into trust, et cetera. So go ahead and make your argument.
Well, the argument is a little complex because he could probably sit on a commission and remain in his position. He could possibly sit on a commission and remain in his position. It would be, it would be, it would raise some questions, but he could probably do that. The problem is that a commission has no power. It has absolutely no power. It is appointed to advise either a Department of State or one of the great departments of state or the president.
Mm-hmm.
And it can provide the paperwork to the president. And that's it.
Yeah. So
let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
On the other hand, he can enter one of the great departments of state with executive powers.
Mm-hmm.
And he can make things happen.
Because he can hire, he can fire.
He can hire and fire. He can close down operations. He could be appointed to the Department of Education and close down the operation. He could be appointed from one department to another and, put a wrecking ball to some of the outlandish operations that they do there. On the other hand, and he could even run NASA for all that matter, but whatever he did in that Department of State, he would fall under this commission of a government commission, I forget which it is, which will look at his ethics.
Right.
And one of the first things they will make him do is put all his stock into trust.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing they'll make him do is resign his executive positions in all his companies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the problem. Either he has power in the government and loses all his power over his companies, or he has no power in the government but advisory and keeps his power in his companies. I think he's perfectly capable of running both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
His role in these companies is not to. I mean, he does a lot of product management. He does a lot of product design. He does a lot of. But his principal role is strategy,
Sure.
Deciding what they're going to do and making sure that they have the means to execute it, and they have the will and the drive and focus to execute it. That kind of thing requires him to not only own the stock of the company, but also retain the power within the company. And he can't do both. He can't have the power and in government and the power in his companies. He can't.
Okay, so the alternative side of that would be an example, many examples, because there have been many, many of these commissions set up over the years. And so my clap back to you would be that commissions like the Grace Commission, like the Kennedy Assassination Commission, et cetera, they don't have power, but they do have influence, or at least when they're, I mean, the Grace Commission had
30 years ago, that was true. 30 years ago, in 1980, when Reagan came into power, 2/3 of the rules and regulations in government today didn't exist.
Right. Maybe more, maybe
No,
less.
it's about 2/3. I did the numbers.
Okay.
At the time he was in power, he wiped out about 40%, 30 to 40%, he claimed, of all the rules that there were, of all the regulations there were.
Yeah.
But since that time, they've expanded so dramatically. And one of the areas that they've expanded in is the area of ethics, what people in government can and cannot do.
Right.
So what happened in the Grace Commission time was, firstly, you had a very powerful president in Reagan, and secondly, he had a lot of he put a lot of store. He set a lot of store by Grace and what Grace told him, and he acted accordingly.
Right.
Even if Trump does that today, Elon's hands are going to be very, very, very tightly bound. And Trump hasn't got a great track record in following the recommendations of his advisors.
Trump doesn't. Okay. So now I'm thinking you put Vivek in Department of Education. You put Vice President JD gets you give him one of these sections. He's not a cabinet member, of course, but he's in charge of
Yeah,
immigration.
he could run a commission. He could run a very powerful commission too.
I'm just saying that if Elon is heading up the commission to give his stamp, his imprimatur on the entire effort, it's not a figurehead. He's literally in there, giving them recommendations on AI, giving them recommendations on, how to become more effective and efficient in terms of management methodologies that he employs, like first principles. It doesn't mean that he's not actively involved, but rather you've got a very powerful group of people that are coming in with Trump, evidently, Robert Kennedy Jr., et cetera, that could be the ones who are impacting, specifically having the power to then make these things happen at the cabinet level.
I think we have to be very careful for what we wish.
Okay. Well, we definitely don't want Elon to step down for it.
That's the point. That's the point. And, politics, I can't tell you the fears that I have about Elon getting involved in politics, because I can't tell you how great those fears are, because I've seen what politics do to people, even the best of people.
Yes. Yeah. He's got a lot going on.
It consumes them. And if you think there's a lot of press focus on Elon these days, multiplied by 10 if he gets into the arena. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't do great for the country, and maybe we have to put country above, our concerns and our interests in Elon's missions.
Mm-hmm.
But those missions are very important.
Sure.
And I just can't see him carrying the weight of the country on his shoulders as well as those missions. And the other aspect is, of course, I have already stated my preference of Trump over Kamala Harris. I mean,
it's not a close call.
I don't want to even go there, but he is mercurial.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's temperamental. I don't know how long he and Elon would be able to ride this journey together.
Oh, I think this is the number one thing that I wonder about with this new administration is not just with Trump, but with RFK and with Vivek and with all of these individuals. They're super strong, phenomenal people that he's.
Yeah.
I've never seen in my lifetime. I've never seen a better potential cabinet than this. But when you get that many people that are that powerful and that good, it's just all kinds of possibilities for things going wrong. Neuralink. Elon was just coming out a little bit ago. He added to what he said about Neuralink already at a meeting, I guess, with some neurological medical people today. He says that it will cure almost anything that goes wrong in the brain, and that his goal is a 10-minute operation and a $2,000 price tag.
Well, that was the shattering part of it. Now, I just have to say that I'm a little concerned about that because I haven't read it. I didn't have time to read it. Neuralink, my understanding of Neuralink, and it's very primitive, is that Neuralink can only be embedded in the cortex currently, not beyond the cortex. So it's only functions of the cortex that it seems to have impact on, and the brain has many other components beyond the cortex. So I know that for some diseases like Parkinson's or like tremors, you have to go deep into the brain. So I don't know how that will work. But for eyesight and, well, for several other areas, you know, depending on the position on the brain, Neuralink can work. So I don't know about that statement, and I don't know enough about the brain to even comment. But what caught my attention, what really caught my attention was the money. I mean, he's talking about $2,000. I know that, a friend of mine had this operation where they put the spike in the brain because of an essential tremor to solve the tremor.
Uh-huh.
It's tens of,
It's lots
many tens of thousands of dollars.
right. Yes.
So if he's actually going to achieve that for $2,000, it'll be a miracle.
It will be. Well, he's a miracle. He's a miracle worker.
Yes. Yes.
So a lot of conversation, of course, over the weekend by lots of folks with regard to earnings coming up.
They're going to be, yeah.
So we got the fourth quarter that
Yeah.
we're now 3 weeks into, and Gary Black put out some numbers. AJ put out some numbers. What
I
did you
put out a comment on Gary Black's comment.
saw your comment on Gary Black's comment and Gary Black's numbers? So tell us about your thoughts with regard to quarter four, given Gary Black and AJ and your own numbers that you've put together.
Well, AJ has an excellent piece out, and if you're not subscribed to him, you really need to subscribe to him. I don't want to steal his thunder because, his work is incredibly detailed and normally has a huge amount of evidence behind it. He comes up with almost $1 a share earnings, which is going to be very good.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. It's higher than the street is expecting at this point. It's higher than Gary's expecting at this point. And I trust his numbers. I mean, I think it's like 90 some cents.
95,
95. Good. Yeah. So that kind of accords with where I was. Not that I'm ever accurate. I was out so much in the last quarter. I mean, I've actually won this, quarter end raffle once or twice, but I'm aligned with him. I think that it also portends a very good year next year of earnings above $4 a share.
Good, because that's what I just came out with, Larry.
Good.
Over the weekend, I came out at 424, I think.
There you go. Yep. I think that's what we're looking at for next year. Absent a surprise, and I think the surprise could be on the upside.
Yes.
That may be nice, but I commented on Gary's analysis, which wasn't that far from the 95 cents, by the way. And it's not that far from, I think it's $3.20 for next year. I forget the exact number. Maybe I'm out a little bit.
I think 340. I think it's 340 and the street is 325, I think.
Oh, good. Okay. And then he put a price target of about 300 on the shares. And I said, this could well be a reasonable 1-year estimate. And it kind of reflects what the street is thinking, around about plus minus. And it also reflects what the investment community or the institutional investment community is thinking, because they take their lead from the analysts, and this is what the bulk of the analysts are saying. And I was saying this has nothing to do with Tesla. If you're investing in Tesla, you're not investing it because you're going to get earnings of $3.40 next year, or $4 next year if you listen to us, and $3.20 if you listen to the street, and $3 for. That's not why you invest in Tesla.
Right.
You invest in Tesla because, and then I go into it.
Yeah.
For everything that's not in the earnings analysis.
Yes.
So you've got the robotaxi, FSD and the robotaxi, two different products, complementary, but huge impact. You have Optimus, which is like it's impossible to gauge. And then you have AI. So
Right.
you have three legs of the stool that are not, well, three legs of a five-legged bench
Yes, yes.
that you're not even measuring. The two legs that you're measuring is vehicles and energy.
Right.
Energy is nascent. Very few people get what's coming with energy, but okay, that'll add another 40 cents or 25 cents or 80 cents, something in that $3 range, meaningless.
Mhm.
Because what we're looking for is not, from 250 to 300 or 270 to 340. That's not what we're looking for. And I cite ARK Invest's analysis of the robotaxi market.
Right.
And I really like their analytic method because they're doing a Monte Carlo analysis of each line item
Mhm.
in, very comprehensive analysis,
Mhm.
which means they're looking at probabilities of the range of probabilities of each single line item, of several hundred line items. And so what they come up with is the combination of all of that, and they have a range, from low to high, and it's in the thousands of dollars of share price.
Right. 2,700, I think, by 2029. I think.
Yeah, and that's just like the mid-range.
Right, right, right.
And it goes up to, in the 9,000 range. I forget exactly where, and it goes down to much lower. It goes
Right.
down to like as low as 800 or 700, something in that range. I'm talking from vague memory, and I don't even know if it's the latest version. My point is, I'm not interested in $300. I couldn't care less about $340 next year, or $280, or even $400 next year. I wouldn't be buying that. I wouldn't be all in on that share. I wouldn't have that as the principal component of my portfolio.
Right.
If that was what I was interested in.
Right. Yeah.
I'm looking for the 3,000 to 5,000 range. I'm looking at a multiple of what the
Yes.
valuation is.
Yes. A 10x or a 100x.
I don't know about 100x. 100x is getting a little bit out there, but certainly my target would be 10x. And that's what I said in my piece. It's 10x.
Sure.
I'm not looking for 1.3x.
So now that you've just said that, Larry, I'm going to reverse you and I'm going to ask you to help our people that are watching, because you're a sophisticated investor. Today, Robin Denholm, Kathleen Wilson Thompson, and Kimball Musk all put in their automatic potential sale of about $300 million worth of stock sometime later. I forget
They're
when.
not selling the stock. They're buying stock.
No, selling.
No, they're buying.
Oh, okay. Well,
Their sale of stock is not a sale of stock. Their sale of stock is to sell the exercised options
okay.
in order to buy the stock.
Okay.
This is what Robin did last round, and I had this whole long argument on X, and nobody got it.
Well,
Nobody got it.
Apparently,
Look,
Wall Street doesn't get it either.
Robin sold stock.
Yes.
Why?
To get the money.
If you look at her stock holding, not option holding,
Yes,
you look
yes.
at her stock holding before her sale, and then compare it to a stock holding after the sale. Actually, it wasn't Robin. Sorry. It was the executive who just left.
Oh yeah, don't remember. Don't you? That's
Yeah. Anyway, he sold stock in order to buy in order to exercise the options in order to end up. And so, if you look at the stock before the sale, and you look at his stock holding before the sale and his stock holding after the sale, he ends up with more stock after the sale. So this is how it works. Say he's got zero stock,
right,
but 10,000 options, he or she. The options they earn by being members of the board, this is how they get paid. This is how everybody in Tesla gets, any vigorish in their payment.
Sure.
So he starts with 10,000 options and no stock.
Right.
The options are exercisable at $1 a share.
Mm-hmm.
The stock goes up to $2 a share. Now, in 3 years' time, the options expire. He has to do something. He has to exercise the option. Well, if he exercises the 30,000 options, then what happens? He pays $1 for the share. He gets the share worth $2. The tax man will say, you made $2 in profit. You paid $1, you made $2, you owe me a tax of 40 cents, and or whatever the tax rate happens to be. It could be 80 cents.
Yes.
And so he has to not only pay the $1 for the share, but he has to pay 80 cents for the tax. So he's out of pocket. He has to find the money from somewhere.
Right.
So instead, what he does is he sells enough shares
To cover.
to pay the tax and to buy the shares from the company.
Right.
So he puts in a plan to
Right.
sell 5,000 shares, and he ends up at the end of the process,
Right.
having paid tax and having paid the company for the shares, and he ends up with with half the number of shares.
Right. Right.
So he puts in his plan to sell 5,000. He ends up with 5,000 shares in his bank account, in his in portfolio, and he's whole as far as tax is concerned.
So humor me for just 1 second, Larry, because the stock went down as soon as that announcement was made, went down pretty big time. In your experience, if this was, let's just pretend that it was a sale, or not a sale today, but an announcement of a sale later.
The 105B, it's a plan to sell shares over a certain.
Right. And it was 300 million in a company the size of Tesla. And all of a sudden the stock goes down $7 after a big run up. Is that an excuse to sell?
Pretty much.
Okay,
Pretty much.
an excuse to sell.
Nobody in the institutional field puts much store by it. You'll get an idiot, an analyst like Gordon Johnson saying, yeah, you see, they had to sell the shares. It happened, it's crazy. What can I tell you?
Okay, the other news today was that Ford came out with a pretty good earnings report. It was just a bit mixed, but they gave a slightly negative guidance only about their profit range. At least I didn't read like in detail, but according to the analyst article that I was reading, they were shooting for a $10 to $12 billion profit for the year, and now they're just saying a $10 billion. They didn't include the 212. And they went down 4% over that. So maybe there was more. They also said they lost $1 billion more in the EV business. So that was not shocking or surprising.
That's low, actually. I thought there would be some more.
Yes. So anyway, I don't know if you saw the report or had any thoughts on Ford. I'm not, as you know, I don't pay a lot of attention to the competition, but what we're watching Volkswagen and Mercedes and all these people with their very bad earnings reports, kind of refreshing that General Motors and Ford weren't that horrible.
I haven't seen the Mercedes report.
Well, just their sales, not their
their sales. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen the Ford report yet. I used to follow the Ford and Chev earnings reports very closely. I used to read their 10Qs very closely. I really need to do. I've kind of lost track of time for that. I should have a look and see what I think. I think Ford is tackling the EV question more seriously than GM.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of these EV makers and the press are going to be, focused on the hybrid story, and until that dies for them. I mean, the real problem with EVs is very few US companies and very few European companies make decent EVs.
Yeah.
The Chinese have they're making very good EVs. Right. By the way, did you listen to Trump on Joe Rogan?
I did listen to the whole 3 hours. Absolutely.
Oh, you did? I only got through about an hour and a bit of it. I went to vote today, so I listened to it driving there and then driving back. because they had to drive 1,000,000 miles in order to get to a place that didn't have an hour-long wait.
I see.
Um, yeah, I mean, I have to, just as an aside, I think Trump talks a lot of sense, but he talks a lot before you get the sense.
It's just his style. Always has been. Nothing
He
is
calls it weaving,
leaving.
and Joe is struggling to get him to stop, to get him to unweave.
Yeah, I just one pundit today said that he thinks it'll be the JFK debate moment for American politics. That this will be the day when every politician knows that if they don't get on Rogan and say their piece, they're done. And that doesn't mean Rogan; it could be the next guy.
Yeah. I was gonna say that same thing. Yeah, you're right.
Going to be
I
all
mean,
about the long form.
the day of the television has died, and television really has committed suicide. They haven't died; they've committed suicide. What they did with Kamala's interviews was terrible, and what they did with the debate was even worse. So I think they've died. I mean, look, you know, I'm not a hard, dyed-in-the-wool Republican at all.
Right.
And it pains me sometimes to vote for the Republican candidate. But I have to say that, what has become this far left, what the Democrats have become this far left party, this far left faction that's taken over the party. I mean, they have really messed up so royally. Anyway,
So the economics this week, Larry, we've got 5 of the Magnificent Seven reporting this week. We have got the PCE. We have got the labor numbers from both the government and from ADP this week. A lot of potential for the markets to be roiled like crazy, and the bonds just keep going. The yields keep going up. They're now at 4.28. I just really wonder, have you adjusted your odds of whether you think we'll see a 25-point basis cut next week?
I don't know. Did you watch the All In Pod?
I did.
They kind of reflect a lot of my own feelings. I think that they're aligned with me about this recession. I think that the Fed is in a bind, the government's in a bind, and the bind is not going to go away regardless of who the president is. We're in very serious straits.
Yeah.
We have to cut, we have to pull in the belt. We have to cut. We have to cut. And if we don't cut, and I certainly don't see Congress cutting at this point. It's going to take some strong presidential action to cut.
Yeah.
And I don't see either candidate doing that. So I think, there's a crisis of confidence in the land. The crisis of confidence has to do somewhat with politics, but a lot more to do with the economics of it. And, a lot of people understand we can't keep going on the way we're going. On the other hand, I don't think anybody wants to pay the price that we'd have to pay to get this thing under control.
Yeah, so the only way that you cannot, so Elon says there'll be a price to pay. He says there's going to be some discomfort in the early going. And I agree with him. I agree there'll be some discomfort. But I also,
discomfort.
I've been trying to think about it in the way that I know when I cut my company's overhead by like a 30% one time. And there are ways to do it that are not crazy horrible, because you're looking at individual, when I say individual, millions, of course, of departments within the government, but they're all in a previous century in terms of their efficiency. So to a large—
There are 2 things you have to do when you cut.
Yeah.
The first is you need to stop giving people free stuff. And the second thing you do is you have to fire a lot of people.
But you can start by not hiring. You can start by putting in a hiring freeze. Then you can talk about some kind of a 10% across the board or something. And then I love Vivek, who wants to just say, we go in, like you just said a minute ago, go in to the Department of Education and go, it's over. We're done. We don't have a Department of Education. We're going to send this percentage of the income to the states, and it takes one person to figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not just the Department of State. There are many departments where the amounts of money that they spend is just staggering,
Yeah.
just staggering. I mean the Department of
Education.
Education. The Department of Education, I mean, yeah, the Department of Education has a very, very bad record. You know, the quality of the education in this country is dreadful. And it has fallen from, the leading country in the world to somewhere around the middle, which is kind of the bottom. So you can argue that it's not performing any value, performing, any valuable service. There are other departments, though, that spend a lot more money.
Mhm.
I mean, the State Department spends an enormous amount of money. Department of Transport. I mean, they're just every single department you can think of whole functions that they do
Sure.
that they shouldn't be doing.
Shouldn't even be doing. Yes, yes. Yeah, so I think this is where the wisdom of Elon, I think, will really, come into play. And, we've seen it done before with the Grace Commission. We actually saw it done before during the Clinton years. It is possible in the Clinton, I'm sorry, Clinton and Gingrich got in there and got some cutting done. So it's possible to do. It's just a matter of the will to do it. And you didn't see the Reagan cuts. The kind of things that Reagan cut and the kind of things that Clinton cut actually helped the economy. They didn't hurt the economy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had fantastic years both in Reagan and in Clinton.
Right. Okay. Well, Larry, any other thoughts with regard to the week ahead as we have all these Magnificent Seven reporting and all of the reporting from the government this week?
NVIDIA are not reporting.
I'm sorry? No,
NVIDIA are not
five of
reporting.
the Magnificent Seven. Yeah. Everybody but Tesla and NVIDIA. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very interested to see what happens to the guys who are spending all this money on AI, to see if it's beginning to pay for them and how they're treating their investment. I want to read the 10Qs rather than the earnings. It's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So the Dow ended up 273 points today. The NASDAQ ended up 48 and the S&P ended up 15. Tesla was down 668 after being kind of up and down all day. But at the end of as I mentioned, as soon as this report came out, it dropped quickly at about 12:30 California time, 3:30 East Coast. Then the Magnificent Seven all did well except for Microsoft and NVIDIA, which were down a bit. And all the Cathie Woods were up.
By the way, I should stipulate that I didn't read the press release or the 8K or 4K, whatever the form is about the sale of the shares. So what I said, by the way, is not necessarily what happened. I don't know what their plan was, but if their plan was to sell because they're having to exercise options, then what I say applies.
Okay.
I just thought I'd better make that.
Okay, all right. Okay. So Jeff Bezos says that the Americans don't trust the news media anymore.
And he's partly responsible.
And he's partly responsible.
He didn't say that, but he is.
I just thought that was pretty interesting. That's just going across my headline.
Being an owner of the Washington Post, it's extremely interesting.
Yes, I know.
He's going to have a revolt on his hands.
He already has a revolt on his hands.
I haven't been, as I said, I haven't followed the news today.
He actually said today that he's planning to put in more conservative writers, editors.
Yeah, I think he's realized, and the Salzburgers haven't, that they can't continue down this path anymore. Yeah. They can't. They just cannot.
So the 10-year, Larry, is unchanged in the pre-market, so it's still at 4.278, which is where it got to today. The 2-year is also unchanged. Look at the boy, not much action after in the pre-market here. But interestingly, one of the things that you and I have been following for a long time, the difference right now between the 10-year and the 2-month is down to less than is 45 basis points. 45 basis points. And it's again because the 10-year has gone up.
On up, not the 2-year.
Yes, yes. And so that's what was predicted by some of these people that we were following. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Everybody said that when everything crossed, then that would be when the recession started, but we seem to be
refusing to cross.
Yes. Anyway, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Oil, of course, dropped off the cliff today. It's up a little bit, recovering a little bit in the pre-market, up 55, but still sitting at just under $68 on Texas Intermediate. People are saying it's a relief because of the relief over Israel and the fact that we're just overloaded with oil.
Or it's a signal that people expect Trump to be elected. Drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill. Yes, even more oil, because he has already promised to get energy costs down immediately on being elected. Natural gas continuing down a bit. It was down heavily today. It's at 2.269 after being, I think, I may have started the day over $2.40. So that was a very big drop today. Gold's down 220, but still sitting at 2750 or 2,750. Silver down a tad, also 0.61%, but still almost $34. And copper down a tad as well. Dollar.
What did you think about 𝐤𝐚𝐬𝐽's view that gold is a way to run up?
I think so. What 𝐤𝐚𝐬𝐽 didn't mention, which I read an article just the other day to reminding me of this, Turkey, China, South Korea,
Russia.
And Russia. I think there's one more. Their central bank are buying
Brazil.
Yes, I think that's right. And Brazil are buying gold like crazy. This is where a lot of this run-up is coming from. Now, there are also the individual purchasers in the United States, China, and South Korea. Those three countries.
And India.
In India, okay. Individual purchases. So this, I think, is what's going on more than any other thing with regard to this run-up on gold. What is it about? Well, it's different in every place. So China, it's because
it's the BRICS trying to create an alternate pillar in the world economic trade. And so if they have enough gold, then that would be a floor for, some sort of currency, some sort of non-dollar currency. I think that's, it's an anti-American thing.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, it's awfully good because it may actually take the pressure off the dollar. Being a world currency is both a good thing and a curse in itself. So,
so far it isn't working because 𝐓𝐿𝐵𝐶 reported the other day that the U.S. currency has been involved in more trades by a pretty significant amount, a record, I think, maybe even number of trades over the last quarter compared to where it's been in previous times. So the dollar is actually getting stronger. Now that again might be because of the strength of the U.S. economy comparatively. I don't know if we talked about this there, but I looked it up. 9 out of the top 10 corporations by market cap in the world.
Yeah, but when Trump slaps his tariffs on, this is going to be fun. Not fun. It's going to be fun to watch, but not fun to be in the middle of.
I see. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I think, yes, I agree. I don't think either you or I are going to worry about where our next meal is coming from. Bitcoin up 2,189, almost ready to cross 70 again. There you go.
This is a very positive sign for the Trump, it feels like, it smells like, it sounds like a landslide, But
Yes.
that's today. Tomorrow could be completely reversed.
Right. So you've got the equities, Larry, Dow down 17, S&P up 0.25, so call it unchanged, and the NASDAQ even only up 7.25. So it is very flat in the equities.
Do you remember what happened to the stock exchange last time Trump was elected?
Went crazy, went up. Yeah. Yeah. I reported this morning, I'm forgetting who it was that was talking about this. Of course, they agreed with me, so I love to print it, saying that it doesn't matter who wins, the market's going to go up and the economy is going to go up, at least initially. So, but this particular person was saying if Trump wins, it goes up way more.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep. That's the theory.
One of three things are going to happen.
Yeah. What would those be, Larry?
The market may go down.
Oh,
The market may stay the same. The market may go up. One of those three things are going to happen.
Yeah, one of those three. Famous.
And over time, all three.
That's 100% true. And Larry, that's why people tune into this show.
To get such bad information.
Tap into your wisdom. That's what it's all about. All right. With that said, what else do I want to say before I go away? Yes, earlier today, Brian White was on. We had a great time answering a bunch of questions that you might still have had after the earnings call, even though we got lots of stuff answered. There was still a bunch of stuff that didn't.
I must go and listen to that.
Yeah, so that was fun. And tomorrow, regular schedule. And Larry, thanks as always for being on.
Thank you, sir.
To all of you out there, it's been phenomenal talking to you.